You asked for it, so let's talk magic items. I guess I'll call this Magic Items 101. We've already covered how to identify magic items in a separate video, but let's talk everything else that you may have missed. Stay tuned. This is educational. I don't see need for an intro bit. What's going on, folks? My name is Ted, and this is my channel, Nerd Immersion, where I do my absolute best to cover the content that you all want to see, where I constantly keep changing my video and audio settings to make it the most appealing for all of you. So I made a video yesterday that had said, I published the video yesterday talking about how to identify magic items. And boy, was that an eye-opening video, because a large majority of you seemed to either, well, one way, everybody was opinionated on it, so let's talk about that, about the identifying magic item rules in 5th edition. Long story short, you don't need the identify spell, and you can learn what a potion does by sipping it, and learn that an item is magic just by holding it. That either blew people's minds, they chose to ignore it entirely, but they knew about it, or it really was just a truly educational thing. So based on your feedback, we're going to dive into all the other stuff. So we're here on D&D Beyond, and we're in the magic items. This is chapter 7 of the Dungeon Master's Guide. It's pretty much all about treasure. So just to go over the beginning, I kind of skipped the start, which talks about the types of treasure, how to generate random treasure. There's a whole bunch of tables here that you'll see me scrolling through right now that talk about how to generate treasure at random. In my mind, if you really don't know what you want to do, use those treasures. But if you're someone that's like, man, I really hope they find this item in the Dragon's Treasure Hoard, then just put it in there. Don't hope that they roll it randomly. You know what I mean? There's no reason to. I know sometimes as DMs, we get in our head, I need to have something else I've talked about. We need to get into our head. I need someone to roll to see if they succeed at this, but I want them to succeed, so I just lower the DC. If you want them to find a certain magic item, just put it there. Don't roll for it. All right, so I'm going to cover, I think, selling magic items and buying magic items in a separate video because, one, the existing rules in my mind aren't great, and two, there are a lot of really good resources out there to improve how you handle that, so that, I think, deserves its own video. So this will be Magic Items 101, everything else. We talked about identifying a magic item in the last video. We talked a little bit about attunement, but for those of you who don't know, if you're new to 5th edition or you're just browsing videos and you happen to come across this, they have a system in place in 5th edition called attunement. In previous editions, certain magic items, your limitation was what you would imagine in an RPG or a video game. You can only slot enough items that you have slots for. You have a hand slot for rings, you have a hand slot for gloves, for bracers, for a shirt, for armor, for a hat, for goggles, for a mask, for a belt, for boots, for pants, and so on. That's how it worked. In 5th edition, that's not really the case. You are only limited in attunement slots. So the way they handle this is there are certain magic items, typically the ones that are more powerful, are considered attunement items. And then in doing so, you take the time to attune to it, to bond with this magic item. And when you do so, it takes up one of your attunement slots. You have 3. There are ways to break that, but for the most part, it's only 3. And that's kind of how they hard limit how many magic items you can have. There are a bunch of really good non-attunement magic items, and obviously a bunch of significantly better attunement magic items. So if we take a look through here, it says that you attune to a magic item through the course of a short rest focused on the item. As we discussed in the last video, this is a short rest separate from the one you use to identify it. And at the end of the short rest, you gain the intuitive understanding and are attuned to it. For those of you commenting about command words, at the end of a short rest, the creature gains an intuitive understanding on how to activate a magical item, properties of the item, including any necessary command words. So you don't need the identify spell to learn the command words. If it has a command word, attuning to it gives that to you. Obviously, if it's a magic item with a command word that doesn't require attunement, then you'll have to figure out how that works. An item can only be attuned to 1 creature, and here it is, you can't be attuned to no more than 3 magic items at any time. Any attempt to attune to a 4th item fails. A creature can't attune to more than 1 copy of an item. For example, a creature can't attune to more than 1 ring of protection. So if you wanted to get that benefit of that, you'd have to have like a ring of protection and a cloak of protection, not 2 rings of protection. It doesn't work like that. That's also when I feel people miss a lot. You can't attune, like you can't have 2 rings of protection. It doesn't work. An attunement to an item fails if they no longer satisfy the prerequisites for attunement. If the item has been more than 100 feet away from them for at least 24 hours, so you can still be attuned if it's away from you, but it has to be 24 hours total before you're unattuned. If you die, or if another creature attunes to the item. So something to think about, right? It might get stolen from you, you're still attuned to it. The attunement may break when someone else attempts to it, or does attune to it. And you can also voluntarily end attunement by spending another short rest focused on the item, unless the item is cursed. So this is a big one for a lot of folks. Cursed items. How do we handle that? Some magic items bear the curses that bedevil their users, sometimes long after a user has stopped using the item. A magic item's description specifies whether it's cursed or not. Most methods of identifying magic items, including the Identify spell, fail to reveal such a curse, although lore may hint at it. A curse should be a surprise to the item's user when the curse effects are revealed. Attunement to a cursed item can't be ended voluntarily unless the curse is broken first, such as with the Remove Curse spell. So, identifying, if you read that again, most methods of identifying, including Identify, fail to reveal such a curse. So, whether you identify the magic item on a short rest or with the Identify spell, it doesn't tell you whether it's cursed. And again, as it states, it should be a surprise. So there's no way to know ahead of time that, oh, this item is cursed. And then usually can't break the attunement voluntarily. I don't think I need to discuss the categories of magic items, right? Armor is armor. If it's a type of armor that exists in 5th edition, then you can have a magic version of it. For potions, they are 1 ounce. They're an ounce of liquid. We discussed that you can sip them to identify them. Drinking a potion or administering a potion to another person requires an action. Folks, that is the base rule. It is an action to drink a potion. I know Critical Role made potions a bonus action, and then a lot of other people have since done that. But it is an action to drink a potion if you play by the books. That's how it goes. And it says applying an oil may take longer. And then there's this variant for mixing potions, which I really, really like. It's a really cool concept. So a character might drink 1 potion while still under the effects of another, or pour several potions together into a large container, which I think is just hilarious. Strange ingredients used in creating potions can result in an unpredictable interaction. When a character mixes 2 potions together, you can roll on the potion miscibility table. If more than 2 are combined, roll again for each subsequent potion, combining the results. Unless the effects are immediately obvious, reveal them only when they become evident. So let's just check that again. Mix them together, roll on the table. If more than 2 are combined, roll again for each potion, combining all results. So there's a D100 table. If a 1, it creates an explosion dealing 6d10 force damage to the mixer and a d10 force damage to each creature within 5 feet of the mixer. 2 to 8, the mixture becomes an ingested potion of the DM's choice. So, like, if you drink it, it's which one? An ingested poison. I'm sorry, I read that. An ingested poison of the DM's choice. 9 to 15, both of them lose their effects, so you're just drinking liquid for no benefit. 16 to 15, only 1 the DM will choose, or multiple if it goes from there. 26 to 35, both work, but with their numerical effects and durations halved. A potion has no effect if it can't be halved in this way. 36 to 90, they both function normally. And then 91 to 99, the numerical effects and duration of 1 potion are doubled. If neither potion has anything to double in this phase, it works normally. So if it lasts for a certain period of time, a minute, now it becomes 2 minutes and so on. And the best one you could get, rolling a 100. Only 1 potion works, but its effect is permanent. Choose the simplest effect to make permanent, or the one that seems the most fun. For example, a potion of healing might increase the drinker's hit points by a maximum by 4, or Oil of Aetherius might permanently trap the user in the ethereal plane. At your discretion, an appropriate spell such as Dispel Magic or Remove Curse might end this effect. One that I think would be really cool would be like a potion of Heroism, the one that gives you Bless permanently, or maybe the potion of Speed that gives you haste permanently. those could be completely bananas to think about, but I really like the concept of that. Then we have these other ones, rings, rods, and scrolls. They do have a variant here for scroll mishaps. Oh, I should point out that is a variant rule if they choose to use it. In theory, you could combine all these potions together, which is something I don't think people think about. Like, you could dump a bunch of potions of healing into one bottle, and then in theory drink that whole bottle and get all the benefits, right? Scrolls, a creature who tries and fails to cast a spell from a spell scroll must make a DC 10 intelligence saving throw. If the saving throw fails, roll on the scroll mishap table. Again, a variant rule. A 1, a surge of magical energy deals the caster a d6 force damage for level of the spell. 2, it affects the caster or an ally determined randomly instead of the intended target, or it affects a random target nearby if the caster was the intended target, right? So if it's to hit an enemy, it affects you or an ally. If it's to hit you, it affects a nearby target. A random location, and within range, the spell's effect is contrary to the norm one. For instance, a fireball might produce an area of harmless cold. The caster suffers a minor but bizarre effect related to the spell. Such effects last only as long as the original spell's duration, or d10 minutes for spells that take effect instantaneously. For example, a fireball might cause smoke to billow from the caster's ears for d10 minutes. Or 6 here, the spell activates after 1d12 hours. If the caster was the intended target, the spell takes effect normally. If the caster was not the intended target, the spell goes off in the general direction of the intended target, up to the spell's maximum range if the target has moved away. Another really popular one that I really like is this concept of wands that don't recharge. This is kind of how wands used to work in older editions. They were sort of like a burnable thing. You'd get a wand of Cure Wounds, and it would use so many of it, and you'd use it up, and then it would just kind of fizzle out. There was a unique or rare magic item that could be recharged, like a spell, a wand that you could do things and it would recharge. Now it's kind of flipped the opposite, right? Like you have your wand of Fireball lets you shoot out fireballs. As long as you don't use them all, they recharge, or an amount of charges will recharge daily at dawn. Wands that don't recharge. Typical wand has expendable charges. If you'd like your wand to be a limited resource, you can make some incapable of regaining charges. Consider increasing the base number of charges in a wand to a maximum of 25 charges. These charges are never regained once they're expended. For example, a very simple magic item that could be cool would be a wand of Cure Wounds with a maximum of 25 charges. So it lets you cast Cure Wounds, D8 plus whatever modifier, and then like it's 25 uses of it, boop, 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 and then when it's done, it just becomes a stick, and it's useless. Weapons, wondrous items. All right, so wearing and wielding them. Most importantly, it says a lot of it. Many magic garments are made to be easily adjustable or magically adjust themselves to the wearer. Certain items say this, other ones don't, but more or less it's considered in 5th edition that if a suit of armor, like imagine the One Ring, if you've seen Lord of the Rings, you can see when Sauron's hand, the ring gets cut off, and Isildur picks it up, the ring kind of shrinks to fit his hand. Kind of the same concept with magic items in 5th edition as far as like armor and clothing goes. It will adjust automatically in size to fit the wearer. It does say there are rare exceptions that exist. If the story suggests a good reason for an item to fit only characters of a certain size or shape, you can rule it that way. For example, armor made by drow might only fit elves. Dwarves may make items but only used for dwarf-sized characters. Also something to consider if you branch out in different races. When a non-humanoid tries to wear an item, use your discretion. A ring placed on a tentacle might work, but a yuan-ti with a snake-like tail instead of legs can't wear magic boots. Right? This is something that I've always seen for a long, like, does it count if I put a ring on like a unicorn's horn? Can a bear wear a ring? Well, probably not because of the way their paws work, right? But a bear might be able to wear boots in theory, or a bear might be able to wear a suit of armor or a necklace or a hat. Things to consider. Multiple items of the same kind. This one I think gets flexed a lot, but use common sense to determine whether more than one item can be given to a creature. So a character can't normally wear more than one pair of boots, one pair of gloves or gauntlets, one pair of bracers, one suit of armor, one item of headwear, and one cloak. You can always make exceptions. They might be able to wear a circlet under a helmet or wear 2 cloaks, right? I mean, I grew up in the 90s and the 2000s. You can definitely wear multiple belts if you want. they may not serve any purpose. One might be to hold up your pants, or none of them might be to hold up your pants. You might just be wearing multiple belts for the fashion statement. But again, user discretion. I feel like it kind of could make sense that you could wear gloves underneath a mailed gauntlet. That's kind of how they're designed to work anyway. So like that could work, right? You could wear gloves and gauntlets and maybe bracers on top. You know, you could dual layer cloaks in my mind. You could wear a cap under a helm, depending on what it is. And then obviously you can't mix and match, right? You can't wear one boot of striding and springing and one boot of elvenkind. To get both, they come as a pair. You need to wear both to get the benefit. All right. Then we have a little bit here on activating an item. If an item requires an action to activate, that action, this is a big one, folks. Pay attention. If an item requires an action to activate, the action isn't a function of the use an object action. I repeat, isn't a function of the use an object action. So a feature such as the rogue's fast hands can't be used to activate the item. I've known this and I've more or less chose to ignore it, but that is not the rule. All right. So if I have an item, a wand of fireballs, it is a magic item. It is an action to use my wand of fireballs. I cannot use the rogue's fast hand abilities to use an object as a bonus action to use a bonus action to activate it. So read that one more time from start to finish. If an item requires an action to activate, the action isn't a function of the use an object action. So a feature such as the rogue's fast hands can't be used to activate the item. One, that's the rule. As it stands, as written, how it's supposed to go. I am confused as to me literally activating an item using an object. I'm picking up an object. I am utilizing that object, but that is not the same as the use an object action. I recognize that there are two different things mechanically. It seems kind of funky in practice, but maybe someone from Wizards of the Coast will answer as to why that is different, because I am using an object. I get it. Maybe if I'm using an object to cast a spell from an item, then I'm really using the cast a spell action as opposed to that. But what if it's not technically... here's an example. The Sunblade uses a bonus action to activate the Sunblade. Make your lightsaber beam come out. But I can't use the use an object action to activate the blade? I guess not, because the bonus action is defined by the item. Specific beats general. Comments. Let me know. Thoughts in the comments below. Consumables are consumed and used. Some magic items allow the user to cast a spell. The spell is cast at the lowest possible level. Uses a normal casting time, and the user must concentrate if the spell requires concentration. Many items, such as potions, bypass the casting time. There are several the Necklace of Prayer Beads, for example, lets you cast the spells out of it as a bonus action that breaks the typical action economy for it. Certain magic items, such as staffs, may require to use your own spell casting ability. This is another important one. If you have more than one spellcasting ability modifier or ability, you get to choose which one. If you don't have a spellcasting ability, perhaps you're a rogue that uses the Use Magic Device feature, your spellcasting ability is 0 for the item and your proficiency bonus doesn't apply. So that's something to consider. There are things like the Ring of Shooting Stars that say they use your spellcasting ability modifier. If you don't have one, yours is 0. There you go. And then charges, they regain charges if they regain them. Most magic items are considered extraordinary craftsmanship. Thanks to this combination of careful crafting, is at least as durable as a regular item of its kind. We don't really deal with durability too much in 5th edition, like trying to sunder and break items. It's not really a super big function of the game, but again, consider that. They should be stronger. Most magic items other than potions and scrolls have resistance to all damage, something I did not know. Artifacts are particularly indestructible, requiring extreme measures to destroy. And then special features. All right, so I'm a little long on this video as it stands, but I want to cover this because this I really like. So this is a cool function, and there are some really good DM's Guild resources to expand this. But this is a simple way for you to take a boring old +1 longsword, let's say, and make it way cooler. So they have these tables here, these special features. It can also help you build the lore of a weapon or an item that you didn't know of ahead of time. So some of these I'd say you can roll on the spot and it's fine. Other ones I would suggest probably rolling before you put the item where the party's going to find it so that it has benefits to it. But let's see. Why was it made? What was its original purpose? Blah, blah, blah. Some of these magic items, or some of these table entries make more sense than others. Some magic items are only made by certain kinds of creatures, such as a little cloak of elven kind being made by elves rather than dwarves. If you roll something that doesn't make sense, roll again. So let's take something, let's build a sword. Swords are pretty common. We'll do a +1 longsword. But what makes our +1 longsword special? Well, who created it or what was its intended use? I'm going to roll a d20, or here we go. 9. Okay, dwarf. The item is durable and has dwarven runes worked into its design. It might be associated with a clan that would like to see it returned to their ancestral halls. Well, 1, now it's a dwarven longsword, so if you're a dwarf in your party, they may want to use it if they use longswords. 2, you might have just come up with a specific quest. Hey, you know what? You find out about a dwarven, you saw it on a notice board, you didn't care about it, well, now you found a sword. Maybe you're a group of kind of mercenary types. Well, maybe someone will pay us to return this to them. Let's go see if we can get this identified. Okay, what is a detail from its history? How about a detail from our dwarven longsword's history? 6, religious. The item was used in religious ceremonies dedicated to a particular deity. It has holy symbols worked into it. The god's followers might try to persuade its owner to donate it to a temple, steal the item for themselves, or celebrate its use by a cleric or paladin of the same deity. So I think it's Clangeddin? Clangeddin, I think, is the dwarven god of battle. It's either Moradin, Doomathorn, or Clangeddin, but I think it's Clangeddin, because in my mind, I've always thought Clangeddin because like weapons clanging. Anyway, so it's not only does it have dwarven runes worked into it, it has holy symbols of Clangeddin worked into it as well. So, okay, and now maybe we do have a dwarven paladin or a dwarven cleric in the party. Now they really want to use it because of that. Or again, it could be we want to return it to a dwarven temple. We can use it for, maybe as a bargaining chip, maybe as a means to make money for us, maybe as a means to get spell services. This dwarven longsword's becoming a nice integral part of the story. Or at least an avenue for the DM to have people come after it. Maybe there's, the good guys want it, the good dwarves want it, but maybe there's some bad dwarves of the opposite deity that want it destroyed because of its religious significance. Who knows? My favorite part, what minor property does our dwarven longsword have? 17. Waterborne. The item floats on water and other liquids. It gives its bearer advantage on strength athletics checks to swim. Well, maybe these particular dwarves, it was forged by a legendary sailor, dwarven sailor of Clangeddin, and he loved to wear his heavy armor, and it was a detriment to him when he was on his boat. So they forged this special longsword for him to make it easier for him to float. And that's where that comes from. And then what quirk does it have? I'll roll a d12. 2. And because he was a boisterous type, while holding this weapon, the wearer can't help but feel self-assured and confident. And then we get into the random magic item tables and then the magic items themselves. So that is my kind of second magic item video based on your request to cover the other aspects of magic items in 5th edition. We talked about potion combining. We talked about scroll mishaps. We generated a cool dwarven longsword that could potentially, you can use obviously in your own game if you see fit. And I will save one more magic item based video to talk about buying and selling, because there are rules in 5th edition, both contained in the DMG and kind of updated in Xanathar's Guide. And I still don't think anything really hits the mark. So I want to give you my thoughts on how to do it, and there are a bunch of resources out there on how to do it better, and I'll give you probably the most common one in a future video. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons over on Patreon who continue supporting me and the channel. I'm also in the process of revising my tiers a little bit over there. I've been introduced to something new, which I'll do a video on in the future, that will make certain tiers irrelevant because there's a better means to do it. So just stay tuned to the channel, and I'll go over more as time goes on. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time.